Shea?
JD?
Hey, you got me?
Yep.
Okay, yep. Sorry there. Flurry of names, right? I think in the Tuesday was kind of the first day the portal opened, and that's when CJ West, I believe is his name, out of Kent State went in. That was kind of immediately a big name to start watching. And then now most recently, even last night, two DTs pop up that they go after, one out of Michigan State and Simeon Barrow. He'll visit on Sunday. He's told on 3, so that gets it rolling right away. And then they've had a big name out of TCU who entered the portal, who has multiple years left, a former All-American, high school All-American. I'll grab you his name. Hold on, my window on that one just closed. Hakeem Ajit. No, I'm probably going to say it wrong. Ajijalaya.
Hell yeah,
we're ride. Let's see. No, I'm sorry. This is the Houston one. Hakeem Ajijalaya. 6'4", 315. Has played in every game for Houston the past few years. And then I'll give the TCU one.
Demonic.
The TCU kid has 2 years left, correct. Demonic Williams. And he will visit LSU April 30th to May 1st. Also given OU, Texas, Colorado, Missouri, and Oregon visits. So there is a pretty clear. They already had Gio Paez out of Wisconsin. They just hosted Philip Blitty out of Indiana a week ago. As I mentioned, they're in on CJ West. They offered him. They'll probably get a visit there. But everyone, and this is anytime you get on and read about college football in the portal right now and what the top teams need, it's not just Brian Kelly. Everybody out there is saying, well, we need D-tackle help. So competition is stiff here. LSU is one of many, many, many schools who are hoping the second portal window gives them nose tackles and D-tackles.
Shea, I said earlier, I mean, I guess with those comments would probably kill my approach on this would be like, you got to overpay some of these guys, but if everybody's in the market, I guess it's going to be very competitive from a just from demanding the dollar.
I think one thing too to watch here beyond NIL or any money, a lot of these guys are in their final year. Let's talk about a guy like Philip Blitty. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. He's played at Texas Tech before. He's played at Indiana before. And now he's taking these visits. He went to Washington. He went to Auburn, went to LSU, canceled an OU visit that was playing for this weekend. But Jordy, he said one of the biggest things beyond putting tape out there, which I think is key here. I mean, LSU, for many kids, when you're recruiting from the Kent State level and others, holds some cards and saying, hey, you're going to be putting film out against the best in the SEC at an elite school. But a guy like Liddy said, I have one more year left. I don't want a championship in anything. I want to compete to win a conference championship. I want to make the playoffs. And he said, only a few teams, out there on my offer list can do that. And LSU's one of them. So even beyond getting NIL talk, I think that the big selling points for LSU is this could be a year they're into the expanded playoffs, A, and B, they have playing time to give. I mean, Jacobian Guillory is the only DT on this team that's ever started a football game here.
What other spots do you see them maybe going after in the portal, if there's any? Kelly seems like he's real dialed in on the defensive tackle spot. Will they make a move on any other positions?
I mean, I think you could if it pops up and makes sense, whether it's a Louisiana guy or let's say over the next week and a half you lose a bunch of guys at a position, whether it's the defensive back room or something, and guys are attrition and, weren't going to play or we're getting reps on third team, and you take a guy who can maybe give you, an insurance policy there or something of that nature. I could see that happening. But I am with Kelly. Hey, look, at least from the first week of this or from the first 3 or 4 days, D-tackle's all they've been after. D-tackle's all they've offered. I will say, though, he made that comment after the spring game. In that same press conference, he was not too pleased with the punting and even said, hey, look, Peyton Todd, I need to see some competition back there. And Peyton Todd's going into, his 4th year here. Yeah. And whenever Brian Kelly got here, he went and got Jay Bramplett from Notre Dame and took him down and said, all right, you're my new starting punter. And that lasted the first 2 years. I'm curious if they don't look around and see if any punters hit the portal. And Notre Dame's starting punter, for instance, hit the portal on day one. I don't know what his plans are, but just, yes, Brian Kelly said, all we care about is D-tackle. But he also was very critical of the punting game and said that he's got to see some competition there. Where's the competition? Is it walk-ons or is it someone you go out and find?
Wow. Yeah, right. I mean, it's something that you don't realize how important it is until you don't have one. And it did. I took the same thing away in listening to Brian Kelly speak in his post-game after the spring wrap-up, was that he is not happy with his punter. I mean, you could hear it. Shea, it was an eventful weekend last week with LSU. You had a couple of guys in town, including Bryce Underwood and DeCorian Moore. We talked to Billy about this yesterday, but anxious to hear what you have to say about what DeCorian Moore put out where, look, it seemed like he's all LSU right now. What do you make of his recruitment?
Well, first off, the fact that y'all got Billy on the phone is impressive. Billy's been on maternity leave for a couple of weeks. I don't get Billy on the phone. Y'all got Billy on the phone?
We did. First, he said it was his first public appearance yesterday.
Had him for about 30 minutes.
He's not lying. I'll have to go back and listen just to hear his voice. I haven't talked to him in weeks.
He was glowing.
Yes, the new father made his way out to watch Khalid Lockett, and from catching up with him, that's kind of what Billy said as well to me, that, and look, I think that LSU might be the team to beat here, if not have a little bit of a gap on teams like Texas, who are obviously in-state going to be pressing Khalid Lockett. But it would be wild to think, I mean, we had taken this already, gotten this far where they remained committed, or had guys remain committed in Bryce Underwood, who was back this past weekend hanging out with Khalid Lockett. He's the number one quarterback and number one overall player. Harlan Berry was there this weekend, the number one running back, hanging out with Khalid Lockett. And then you've got the number one receiver, as you mentioned, in DeCorian Moore. No team in the modern era has ever, college teams, ever signed the number one quarterback, running back, and receiver. Just hasn't happened yet. Is LSU trying to go quarterback, running back, receiver 1 and 2 here? Like, that would be quite the flex for a team, an offense that's coming off of finishing number one, and certainly this will give you a boost for the future. My advice, or my goal, if I'm an LSU fan, or how I would talk myself through this one, is that you come away with one of these guys out of Texas. They're both 5 stars, 1 and 2 players in the country. And then you're good. And you've got more committed already. We know there's rumblings that Texas is going to be in it till the very end. But LSU knows that, which is why they've been all over guys like Khalid Lockett. And now he's going to once again come in the summer for an official visit. So the good news sort of continues for LSU recruiting the offensive side of the ball.
Speaking of offense, they picked up a commitment last weekend in JT Lindsey, the running back out of Ash. The recruitment around the running back position has been interesting this season because of how talented the state is. You mentioned Barry was in town last weekend. They pick up a commitment from Lindsey. Simon's still out there. What's going on?
Yeah, and I think this one, more than anything, is about JT Lindsey. I mean, he tore it apart at Ash, and if we need my man, I was going to say Stewie, but that'd be for any Westgate and lower stuff. If we need Lloyd to chime in, but Ash isn't turning out kids ever. And we hear about the DJ Sharks and Jacoby and Guillory, and that's what Lindsey said. He said, look, these kids come through my school once every a blue moon, it feels like. And to have a chance to play at LSU and an offer to be there would be something that I couldn't pass up. When you're talking like that ahead of getting an offer, the staff realizes, hey, this guy's all in if we make a move on him. And they evaluated him and felt very good about it. I mean, you're talking about a kid who already was touching 10-7 2 weekends ago in the 100 meters up in Scotlandville as a junior. And again, this past season as a junior, nearly 2,000 yards, 28 touchdowns. Everybody over there at Ash has been screaming that, hey, look, people just don't come through Sinlaw, these out-of-state colleges. And he hadn't been on the map. And we ranked him, I remember, in February as the number 11 running back in the country. And he was unranked at the time and went and became a top 150 prospect. And, offers started to roll in from smaller schools. But Frank Wilson and LSU were the first school to say, hey, let's do this, jump in, let's get him. And I think you'll look back on this one as being a big steal for LSU. I don't look at this as being about James Simon dragging it out or any of that. It's the reality that LSU needs running backs, and Frank Wilson knows as good as anyone that you want to keep the best Louisiana players home. And I don't remember exactly which classes it were, but we've seen Frank do this before. I mean, back in the day, there was Terrence McGee and Michael Ford and Kenny Hilliard and all those guys, Jeremy Hill, all those guys are around the same class. And one of those years, for sure, they took 3 back. So I don't think this eliminates James Simon either. If Simon wants in, he's in. But LSU wasn't going to wait on both and lose out on a guy like Lindsey by not offering and pushing for him.
And you'd have to go back to the days of Chris Brown and Nick Harris to think of former Ash elite athletes that were getting D1 offers. Both went to Oklahoma, but that was the last time you probably had somebody from Sinlaw that didn't go to LSU if they were given the offer.
Yep, there you go. And I think his recruitment will kind of quiet down now, too, because everyone views it as, look, he's locked in. No need to even offer or try to get me mixed there. That's kind of what happened to Patrick Queen coming out of Livonia. People look back and are like, he had 2 SEC offers, and it was like, well, once LSU came in and offered, other schools kind of just said, hey, look, this kid's a good player, but we don't have a chance. So, yes, another Ash kid, another Trojan is headed to Baton Rouge. And I know Lloyd can probably speak to it a little bit more, but I'll repeat it again. Everyone over there in that area swears that, hey, look, LSU's getting a good one. And he's on the track, in the classroom, and then extremely productive on the field. I'm excited to see him as a senior. I think he's going to be really good.
Shea, a few more. Get you out of here. Brandon Brown is a guy that's committed to Texas. What do we make of Bo Davis's commits to Texas? Are these guys that are now kind of front and center for LSU?
Yes, I'd keep an eye on Brandon Brown. He committed to Texas in December, and soon after that, Bo Davis leaves for LSU, right? So he's got a good relationship with him. Brandon Brown lives in Florida. He's not a Texas kid. And one reason he said at the time he committed to Texas was Bo Davis. So absolutely keeping an eye on a guy like Brandon Brown. And they've been, and this is kind of what I've expected, but whenever you get hired like Bo Davis did in an offseason, Corey Raymond the same. When you're coming from a school where you are already recruiting at a high level, like the type of talent LSU would be recruiting, then you recruit a lot of the same guys. And he immediately jumped on Brandon Brown and then brought him in this past weekend. But I would say that more than half of LSU's board, whether it's Dylan Battle, who was the guy when he was at Texas, he was recruiting and then brought in for a visit, or others, Zion Williams, who is out of Lufkin over there in Texas, and then a number of out-of-state kids, Walter Mathis, Jordan Crawford, Marion Charles, a guy who they just got in this past weekend, who I'm watching very closely, Xavier McLeod, who's currently committed to Mississippi State. I don't think that commitment lasts much longer. I think he reopens things. So more than half those guys I mentioned were guys who's recruiting very hard in Texas. So it's kind of helped that he's been able to kind of carry that relationship over to LSU. And they do not have any high school D linemen committed yet. But I think that was just kind of Bo Davis using these first few months to, hey, let's get settled. Let's look at the board. Who do we like as a staff? And then, of those targets, who's kind of early into LSU. And they've narrowed the search down now after having some visitors. So I think in the next month or two, we hear about, 1, 2, if not more, interior defensive linemen from the high school level starting to get on board.
Kai Prien, Connor Gilbreth, Jackson Howard, some names at LSU that have put their name into the portal. You hearing or anticipate any more?
Again, I think I've heard rumblings on different guys, and look, they have those exit meetings with every player after spring ball, like you do in the fall, after the season, where you talk about where you fit on the depth chart and what's expected of you in summer workouts, and what kind of playing time you might be trending towards if you have those kind of questions. And we'll see more guys say, hey, look, I'm going to go ahead elsewhere and find playing time. Right now, I think they're one above the scholarship count, the limit of 85. And from talking to sources, they fully expect to be below it. And we know they're actively out there scheduling visits and already hosting visits with defensive linemen. So I'd watch the DB room, maybe beyond Prion, the wide receiver room as well. Those would probably be the two big ones. And then, again, special teams, I mentioned earlier, is there any shakeup there? And that could stretch even into the kicking game. Look, Ramos is held down as a preferred walk-on at one time, the starting job for 2 years now, and he'll be the kicker again this year, and he's got multiple years of eligibility left in front of him. And now you've got Aaron Burrell out of Parkway, the number 2 kicker in the country. He gets to campus in June. What does that mean for Dibert, who has almost fallen into that kind of old Avery Atkins role of kickoff specialist, even though Atkins was part of that national championship team. He was pretty excellent at it. Does Dibert want to go start and kick somewhere else? So I do still think there's kind of pieces to watch, not just at DB or receiver, but even on special teams.
Shea Dixon every week here on the Jordy Culotta Show. We appreciate him as always. Make sure and follow him and Billy and their work at On3 and follow them on social media at Shea Dixon and keep up with the latest in recruiting. Shea D, we appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. See y'all later.
All right, man. Remember, Daily, we are brought to you by our friends over at Pierce Bespoke